So this week we're going to be learning Parshas Kisavai. It's always read. It's always read two Shabbosos before Rosh Hashana. The Shabbos before the last Shabbos of the year. It's not a coincidence, but there's a Takonis Ezra that the Brisa in Masechtes Megillah Daf Lamed Aleph quotes. The Brisa says that Ezra Tikkun Lahem Yisrael, that we should read the Toichecha of Parshas Kisavai, the Klolos Sheba Mishnah Torah Koidim Rosh Hashana. Toisus, that Takana was before the minig evolved that we lane the entire Torah every year. There was a particular kriya on Parshas of the Shabbos before Rosh Hashana to lane the Toichecha. Toisvis wonders how we lane Parshas Kisavai two Shabbos before Rosh Hashana. L'chora we're being mevatel the Takonis Ezra. So Taisa says we must say that two Shabbos koidim Rosh Hashana is also considered koidim Rosh Hashana. Taisa says that we dafka do it this way because we want to be mafsik between the Klolos and Rosh Hashana with another parsha. In any case, we see that Parshas Kisavai is read in the time of koidim Rosh Hashana. So probably the entire parsha has something to do with the preparation for Rosh Hashanah, and that needs to be explained. You know, the parsha begins with a mitzvah of bikurim, and after the Torah tells us the mitzvah of bikurim and the kriyas haparsha arami ovedovi, the Torah concludes with a pasuk in Chav Vav Yud Aleph, v'samachta b'chol hatoiv asher nosan l'cho Hashem Elokecha. So you should rejoice with all the goodness that Hashem gave you. So what exactly does that mean? It would seem that it's a promise that if we'll be Mekayim the mitzvah of Bikurim, we'll be rewarded with V'samachta b'chol hatoiv. However, Chazal learned that V'samachta b'chol hatoiv is part of the mitzvahs bikurim. As Rashi brings, Mikan Omru, Ein koirin mikra bikurim ela bizman hasimcha, me'atzeres v'ad hachag, she'odam malakei tvuoso u'peiroso v'yenoi v'shamnoi, and that's a time of simcha, aval mi'achag ve'elech, maybe ve'enoi koirin. So it's actually a requirement in the Kiyum mitzvah of Bikurim that it should be done in a mode of simcha. V'samachta b'chol hatoiv is part of the mitzvah. You know, the Gemara in Arochin says that Bikurim tu'unim shir, that they have to say a shir when they bring the Bikurim, because the Gemara learns that from the pasuk v'samachta b'chol hatoiv. So v'samachta b'chol hatoiv is part of the mitzvah. What kind of a mitzvah is it? And how does it connect with the mitzvah of Bikurim? The mitzvah of Bikurim, you know, all the Rishonim say is about instilling within us the midah of Hakoras HaToiv. As Rashi says, V'omarta Elov, Igadati Hayoim LaHashem Elokecha, Zokt Rashi, V'omarta Elov, She'eincha Kfui Toiva. And as the Chinuch says in Parshas Mishpatim, Mishoroshe HaMitzvah Kedei Lahalois Dvar Hashem Al Rosh Simchoseinu, that he's the source of all good that we have. Al kain nitztavinu lahavi lemishorasei beisoi reishis hapri hamizbashel beilonoisov mitoich hazchira vekabolas malchusoi v'hoida oseinu lefonov ki apeiros v'yese kol hatoiv meito yovoyu nige ruuyim levrocha v'yizborchu peiroseinu. In our parsha, in Mitzvah Tov Reish Zayin, he has the mitzvah of Kriyas HaParsha by Bikurim. And he says, Mishoroshi HaMitzvah l'fisha ha'odom ma'oirer machshevoisov u'mitzayer ha'emes bilvavoi b'koyach divrei piv. A person's expressions create an impression, and a person awakens his machshavos, and he's mitzayer in his heart what he needs to be mitzayer with a koyach Imrei divrei fiv al kain behetiv elov Hashem baruch hu ubevorcho yoisoi That's Admosai Lasis Paris when he's blessed and he has Paris to bring, and he has Paris. The Zochol Lahavion Lebesa Lekenu Ro'ui Loshia Oire Levavoy Bedivrei Piu. The Lachshoiv Ki Akoili Gia Elov Me'es Adoina Oilom. The Yisaper Chasodov Yizborach Aleinu Val Kolam Yisrael Derech Klal Val Kein Maschil Be'inyan Yaakov Avinu Shecholzoi Hokel Miyad Lovon the Inyan Avoidus Hamitzrim Bonu V'Tzilenu HaKodesh Baruch Hu Miyodem etc. So Hakoras HaToiv. Now Hakoras HaToiv really has a dual meaning, because Hakora, first of all, has a meaning of recognizing in the sense of Mishe Yakir Bein Tcheles Lelovon, Mishe Yakir Bein Tcheles Lekarsi, Mishe Yakir Es Chaveroi Berochik Daladamis. Yakir is to recognize. And then there's recognition of the one that bestowed the Tova upon me. But first of all, one has to recognize the Tova, Hakoras HaToiv. You know, when other Mauritian complains, Ha'isha asher nosato imodihi nosno li min ha'etz va'oichal, Rashi says, kan kofar b'toiva. So what do you mean kofar b'toiva? He's not being kofer in the nice not toiva. He's being kofer in the toiva. In other words, the woman was created as an ezek kenegdoi. It was really the best thing for him. However, he's seeing it as something negative. He's saying, so what do I need it for? In other words, the lack of Hakoras HaToiv in the basic sense of recognizing that good is good. The Gemara says in Avodah Zarah, Tanu Rabbanon, the Gemara quotes a brayso, Mi yitein v'hoyo levavam ze lohem. Yeah, HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, halavai, they would have this heart forever. Amalahem Moshe Yisrael, kfuyei toiva b'nei kfuyei toiva. B'shor she'amar HaKadosh Baruch Hu Yisrael, Mi yitein v'hoyo levavam ze lohem, hoyo lohem loima teinata. What do you? They should have said, please give us the right heart. And that is an expression of kfiyus toiva. Rashi says kfuyei toiva, einam makirim lahachzik toiva lebayla. Okay, Taisa says lakach kroom kfuyei toiva sheloi rotzu loima atotein lefi sheloi hoyu roitzim lahachzik loy toiva alkach. Sometimes a person so much doesn't want to have to be indebted that he doesn't even want to get what he can get, because he already figures that if he's going to get it, he's going to become indebted. So kfuyei toiva, they don't want to have a relationship, and they don't want to have the need to recognize the noisna toiva. But the Gemara says kfuyei toiva, b'nei kfuyei toiva. The Gemara says kfuyei toiva. Where do we see that Yidden were kfuyei toiva? The ksiv and afshenu kotza balechem hakloikel. That they described the mon as lechem hakloikel. B'nei kfuyei toiva. The ksiv ha'isha shenasata imadi hi nosna li min ha'etz va'oichal. So you see that kfiyas toiva is really on two levels. One level is not recognizing the nice not toiva, but first and foremost, it's not recognizing that good is good. That's the kfiyas toiva of other Mauritian. He says, and that's the kfiyas toiva of the Yidden in the Midbar that says, instead of realizing the greatness of the mon, they were complaining that the mon isn't good. So just like Hakoras HaToiv has two levels, Kfiyas Toiva has two levels. You know, the expression Kofui Toiv is a very strange word, Kofui. The Sifsei Chachamim in this week's Parsha, Muchetzach. What does Kofui Toiv mean? He says it's Miloshin Koifenol of a Sakli, that you're covering it up. But l'chara, are you covering it up? And also, kfuyei toiva is not mashme koifei toiva, it's kfuyei toiva. They are kafui. So I want to suggest that it's miloshin koifen oisay ashayim eroitzani. In other words, kafui, that when a person doesn't recognize that the good is good, it's being given to him, he's being coerced to take it. In other words, it's being given to him shaloi l'rtzoinoi. It's like ki Yutan mayim al kli yutan dumya digitain. In other words, when it's without nichusa, it's considered kafui. In other words, if you don't want it, it's being forced on you. So if somebody doesn't recognize the goodness of the good, so he's a kafui toiva. The toiva is being forced on him. So you know that when Rashi says V'amarto Elav on the pasuk, Rashi says on the pasuk V'amarto Elav Higadati Hayoim LaHashem Elokecha Ki Bosi El Haaretz. The Maharal says in the Gur Aryeh. So Rashi says V'amarto Elav She'encha Kfui Toiva. Says the Maharal Pirush. How is this a statement of Encha Kfui Toiva Ki Bosi El Haaretz? Zok the Maharal Afal Gav de Ein Tzorich Loimar. Why is he saying to the Kohen, Bosi al Haaretz? The Harei Aniroya Shebo al Haaretz. It's obvious, we see you here. So the Bosi al Haaretz, the Chare is unnecessary. It doesn't need to be spoken out. Umashet Tzorich Loimar ki Bosi al Haaretz Loimar she'encho kfui toiva. Loimar? What does it mean a kfui toiva? She'enoi choshuv ha-toiva l'klum. A kfui toiva is somebody who doesn't appreciate the toiva. So first of all, he has to make a statement that I have an appreciation for the Oretz. And it means something to me. It's not just something that happened. And the Oretz is toiva. And that's the Einchok Fui toiva. So that's the first step in Hakaras HaToiv. So when it says V'samachta b'chol HaToiv Ashenosan l'cho Hashem Elokecha in the end of the parsha of Bikurim, it's not a promise, it's not a reward, it's part of the mitzvah. We are meant to rejoice in the toiva. V'samachta b'chol ha'toiv ashenosan l'cho Hashem Elokecha is part of the mitzvah in Bikurim. The mitzvah is to rejoice with the goodness that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives us. And I want to share with you something that the Kuzari, it appears in the Sefer Kuzari, in the Maimer Shlishi from Yud Gimel and on, from Ois Yud Gimel and on, he's discussing over there Birchas HaNe'enim. And he says like this. So, you know, the whole Sefer is the conversation between the king of Kuzar and the Chover, the Yid, who's, and they're discussing Yiddishkeit. So, Amar HaChover, Yosef loy arevus al arevus. What adds to a person's sweetness upon sweetness, adds to his life sweetness upon sweetness. Sheyevorech tamid al kol mashu moitzim min olam. They should always give a bracha for what he finds in this world, what he takes out of this world. Amar hakuzori ve'eich hu zeh v'habrachas torach yosef. What are you telling me that this sweetens our life? Brachas are just a burden. He says, how is that its sweetness? Omar Achover. Haloi ha'odom ha'sholem roi she'e omer olav shehu margish ba'ano sheb'ma'acholei u'mishteu. Avad odom ha'sholem, he feels the hano, the pleasure, the enjoyment in his eating and drinking. Yosem min hayeled v'habehema, more than a child or an animal. Kishem shel habehema ro'ui liyaches es hahano yosem ashel atzemach. Just like a behemoth has more enjoyment than a plant. He says, Im ki atzemach mekabel mozim b'choleis. The tzemach is being fed all the time, but it has less appreciation. Meaning that awareness is the first step in enjoyment. And a tzemach has no awareness at all. The behemoth has a lower grade awareness. The yeled has a low grade awareness. And it's the Adam HaSholem who has a full awareness. He's Nene Yosef. And then Amar HaKuzari. Yeah, you're right. Kain hu li yisrei nachush v'ahergish ba'ano ki im hoyu miviyim el hashikor kol asher yisave. If you bring a drunk man, you'll bring him everything he wants. And he's drunk. mi Michael, mi Mishte, v'yishma hanigunim, etc., etc. V'yisupar aloi kol zeh k'sheyirofem mishikrusai. They'll tell him later that they gave him this food and they gave him that drink and he was listening to music. Hoyadoyeg al zeh. V'yachshav hakol hefsid v'loi revach. He'll say, wow, what a loss. He wasn't in the state to be aware and to appreciate. So, Omar HaChover, Hazmonas atzmoi lahano v'har goshoso. A person's preparing himself for a hana and for feeling the hana, for experiencing the hana, v'sheyachshoiv behei odro koidim l'chein. And he should also consider, before he's having the hana, that it could have not been. It could have been missing. He could have not had it. Koifel hana, that doubles his hana. V'zeh mitoyelas habrochis, l'mishu hu rogil behem, b'kavana v'hachana. When a person pauses and makes a bracha, he says, it enhances his hana from the food. He says, v'zeh mitoyelas habrochis, l'mishu hu rogil behem, b'kavana v'hachana mipnei, shehein mitzayrois min hahana b'nefesh. It's mitzayir in my heart. Is it a priha eitz? Is it a priha adama? Is it a lechem in aretz? So I become aware of what I'm gonna eat and what it is. Yeah. V'oz tigdal hasimcha. 1 second. And he says, and I'm also thankful to the one that gave it to me, and I was already prepared to not have it. In other words, I consider the possibility of not having. And then it enhances the simcha. You're considering the other option, the other possibility. You could have not been alive. Al shehechyecha, and v'toida, and you thank HaKadosh Baruch Hu for keeping you alive. V'tira ze revach, and you see the revach of life. V'tia nene kol yomecha. In such a way, a person enjoys every moment of his life. Umisha einoi oiches b'haderech hazeh, al tachshav ki hano osoi hano enoishis. He's not having a hano that a human is capable of having. Ach hano bahamis, einenu mevino. He doesn't understand what he's doing. He doesn't understand his pleasure. He doesn't understand his enjoyment. Kasha amanu b'shikar, just like we said about the shikar. So the first matorah of the Birchas Hanenin, says the Kuzari, is really about pausing before we eat to become aware and to appreciate what we have, and only afterwards do we have for what to be moided. We thank for something that's much more than if we just put something into our mouth without thinking. That's what he says. The Mekubalim say that, HaKadosh Baruch Hu created this world. Teva ha'tov lahetiv. He wants to be meitiv in B'riyosov. So the Rebbeinu Shalom really wants us to have the full hana from this world, and the brachas are really part of what gives us the ability to be man. So part of the mitzvah of Bikurim is really v'samachta b'chol ha'tov asher nosan lecha Hashem Elokecha, because these are the two inyanim that there are in hakaras ha'tov. It's not just being makeh where the tova comes from, but being makeh the tova, enjoying the enjoyment. V'samachta b'chol ha'tov. Otherwise, what are you thanking for, b'chlal? And in order to have a full appreciation, we have to begin from the beginning. Because we got here. I mean, it's not like we were born on the mountain. We climbed up here. It's we have to remember our humble beginnings, and we have to remember everything that it took in order to get us to where we got. That's all part of appreciating the good. That in this week's parsha, the Torah says that even in the Midbar had an ace of nalcha loy bolsa me'alecha, that their shoes didn't disintegrate. But in Parshas Eikev it says v'raglecha loy batzeika, your feet didn't swell. Rashi says, Kederech hoilche yochef, that their feet swell. So your feet didn't swell like people that are walking barefoot. So it would seem that they were walking barefoot. But in this week's parasha, it says, V'nal choloi bolsa, that your shoes didn't disintegrate. So it would seem that they were wearing shoes. But when somebody's wearing shoes, he's thankful for the fact that his shoes didn't disintegrate. Those shoes, he has them for so many years. But he should also take into consideration that if they would be nalcha bolsamei alecha, then he would be walking barefoot. And then he could have come to a matziv of raglecha botseika. So Mamela in the Hakaras HaTov, first of all, in the sense of recognizing the good, we have to take into account everything that could go wrong and doesn't go wrong. You know, it's not like the question is not, is everything okay? It's really, is anything okay? If anything is okay, we have a lot to be thankful for. And if more than that is more than that, but we have to understand what we really have. And this is one of the hachonis for Rosh Hashana, because you know that in Parshas Bereshis it says, "Eile toildois hashamayim v'haaretz behiboram b'yoyim asois Hashem Elokim eretz v'shamayim v'chol siach hasode terem yihye ba'aretz v'chol eisef hasode terem yitzmach ki lo himtir Hashem Elokim al haaretz." There was no rain yet, so nothing grew. V'odom ayin lavoid es ha'adam. So, zogt Rashi, terem, why did it not rain yet? Kishenikmer abrias ha'olam b'shishi, koidem shenivra odom. Yeah. V'chol eisef asod adayin lo yitzamach. Ubishlishi, nothing grew yet until Adam Arishan came into being. So on that day of Rosh Hashana, the Yom Brias Adam, there was no rain until Adam Arishan was created. And Rashi says, it says on the third day of Ma'aseh Bereshis, Vatoitzei haaretz. So how is Vatoitzei haaretz? How did they give out its smachim? Lo yotzu, elo al Pesach karka omdu ad Yom Shishi. It was there potentially, but it didn't come out. V'loma, ki lo himte, because there was no rain yet. Umay time lo himte. Why was there no rain yet? Lefisha Odom ayin lavoy desadama. There was nobody that was going to plow. Nobody was going to plant and plow. And the ein makir b'toivason shel geshomim. Nobody knows what geshomim are good for. Ukesheba Odom v'yoda shehin tzorich lo'olam. When Odom came and he knew that rain is necessary, Hispalil oleh v'yordu v'tzamchu ha'ilonis v'adishon. So the Maharal writes in the Guraria like this: Ve'ein maki b'toivason shel geshomim. That before Adam was created, nobody understood the need for geshomim. Nobody knew what it's good for. Kaloimar v'asur lasois toiva leish she'ein maki b'toiva. It's also to do a favor to somebody that's not maki the favor. Ulefichach kol zman sheloi hoya Adam lo himti. It's also, yes, it sounds like it's about tashchis. I mean, because you're wasting good for somebody that doesn't know that good is good. You're wasting the good. I mean, good needs to be appreciated, and therefore, osur laso is toiva leish she'enoi make betoiva, and therefore, kolzman. There was no Adam that understood what rain is for. There was no rain. Okay. Then he says, in the Dibur HaMaskal v'hispalel alein, he says, Kaloimar, she'im lo yispalel alein, mikolshken shelo hoyo noisim moser. Shehari Adam maki b'tevosim v'afilo hoki lo yispalel alein, im kenu kfui toiva, v'hu yoyse gerua mi mishelo maki b'tevos hamoter. So the Maharal breaks up this Rashi into two halves. He says, first of all, you have to have somebody that recognizes what the toiva of rain is. Now that he recognizes, if he wouldn't be mispalel, so he wouldn't recognize where the toiva is coming from. And that's even worse. And therefore, we have to have, first of all, that he should be makir b'toiva, and then that he should be mispalel on the toiva. But the Maharal is actually talking about these two madregas that there are in Hakaras HaTov, recognizing the good of the good and recognizing where the good comes from. So that's really the Maila of Adam Arishan that was created, is that he's a makir b'toivos shel geshomim. and that's the mila of an adam on a behema, like the Kuzari says. So the what we're really commemorating on Rosh Hashanah is Brias Adam. First and foremost, it's about Hakaras HaTov, about being an Adam that's makir b'tayvasin shel geshamim, and that he understands where it's coming from. You see, the Tanchuma in the beginning of this week's parsha says on the pasuk Hayoym hazeh Hashem Elokecha mitzavcha la'asos es hachukim ha'ela. Shteit hazoi. Zeh shomar hakosav. This is what the pasuk says: Boyu nishtachave v'nichro nivrecha lefnei Hashem oisein. V'haloi kriya b'chlal ishtachavo b'chlal kriya. U'ma Talmud loimer nishtachave v'nichro nivrecha. Why are we using three lashonos for bowing down? Elo tzofa Moshe Baruch HaKodesh v'Rosh Beis HaMikdash osed lichorim v'abikurim asidim liposek. Amad v'hiskin liyisrael shiyu mispalel and sholish bom b'chol yom. And the three lashonos nishtachave v'nichra nivrecha, right, are connected the three tefillas b'chol yom. Lefi shechaviva tefillah lefnei HaKadosh Baruch Hu mikol ma'asim tovim u'mikol ha'karbonos shekach ksiv tikon tefillos ikteres l'fanecha masas kapay minchas orev. So in the Anaf Yosef, he explains that what was the shtel of the Bala Medrash, because it says Hayoym hazeh Hashem Elokecha mitzavcha, and Bikurim only kicked in b'shas kibush v'chiluk. So why does it say Hayoym hazeh Anochi mitzavcha? And therefore the Tanchum is saying that this is a remez for the tefillah, which is shaykh even when there's no Bikurim. But you see that tefillahs are really basically bakoshes tzrochim. How is that in place of Bikurim, which is about Hakaras HaTov? But you know that the Prisha says in Arachaim Siman Vav, with regards to Birchas Haidor in general, he says, "V'hei nikram Birchas Haidor sheniskenu sheyoyda ha'adam ala emes, v'yoyda shehu b'reinu." So b'emes the tefillas that we ask for HaKadosh Baruch Hu's help, that's an admission that He's the source of all good, and that we can't do it for ourselves. It's Ata Choynu Adam Das, and you're the Mavarech Hashanim, and you're the Roifei Choylim. And Memela, it's really the recognition of the Noisin HaToiva that comes in a form of thanking, and it comes in a form of tefillah, like we see by Adam Arishan, that he was mispal for the Gshamim. But the underlying idea in the tefillah is also the recognition of the Boirei. And Memela, it comes together with being thankful for what we have, and not just focusing on what we need, but being thankful for what we have. Und Memela versteht sich allein that as we prepare for Rosh Hashanah, we should, sometimes it comes to these, Yomim Noiroim, and we become preoccupied with details. It's important to pay attention to some details in terms of our shortcomings and our failings. But first of all, I mean, on the day of the creation of Adam Arishan, which is the until then it was for Adam Ayin, Lavidus Adama, and now there is a man. And what is a man about? A man is about a makir b'tayvasim shel geshamim. So we should bring ourselves to a state of being makir toiv. And be'emes, people make kabbalas and all kinds of things, and it's all very nice. But, I don't know if you ever noticed on El Al, they say before you land, they collect money for Alut and Alei, and they say small change makes a big difference. I say it's not only about the change. A small change makes a big difference. So sometimes you have to opt for a small change. And a small change would be that we focus on the Birchas Hanen, and it's very short. Even if you have problems with attention, you could be mechaven. A short Birchas Hanen and Hamoitzi Lechem in Haaretz, or Bari Priya Eitz, or Bari Priya Adama, or Bari Mini Mesaynis, Shahakol Nebedvarei. You could really tune in and focus and think and have an appreciation. And that's a way to develop a relationship with a Noisin HaToiva. And that is, that's where it begins. That's what Adam Arishan did the first day of his life. I mean, he was makir b'toivasim shel geshamim. Okay, so I wish you all a good Shabbos.